Hello again, everyone. Vince Shuta here for Shuta Multimedia. Today we're going to do a little bit of a wrap-up of the NFL season for 2010-2011. Starting with a huge congratulations going out to the Green Bay Packers, who played a heck of a Super Bowl against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yes, those same Pittsburgh Steelers I root for all the time. But I am not bitter, because it was an extremely good football game. In fact, it was the highest rated Super Bowl of all time. And in fact, I believe the highest rated television show of any nature of all time. The shows don't get any bigger than that. I've got to say, for a season that was marred by so many controversies, the Steelers pulled themselves together pretty admirably. It makes me kind of wonder, though, if at the end, in the Super Bowl, if they weren't trying a little too hard. Even the announcers pointed out that for the team that was supposed to have more Super Bowl experience, they seemed like they were the skittish ones, the desperate ones, the ones that had to win this game. Hines Ward was quoted as saying that this game meant more to him than the other two Super Bowls. Why would that be, perhaps? Well, perhaps they felt like they were a team under siege. The attitudes of the team were kind of interesting this year because we had a lot of different factors going on. They seemed to rally around Big Ben and said that he's really turned it all around and he's a completely different person, which I think is a good thing, and I tend to trust the team. This is the same team that was complaining when he didn't play with a concussion the one year, specifically Hines Ward. Maybe everybody is willing to toe the line, but something tells me that if Hines Ward thought he was still a jerk, Hines Ward would say he's a jerk. The team also seemed to believe that it was them against the world, especially considering all the fines from the league related to illegal hits or hits that were too hard or hits that were in the wrong location, while other teams seemed to not get fines for hits that were similar or worse. I think taking that attitude, it's us against the world and that we have something to prove, puts you in the position where they were in the Super Bowl, where they were trying too hard. They had to win the Super Bowl just to prove everybody wrong, and in the end result they didn't prove everybody wrong. They did not play their game. Not taking anything away from Green Bay, who may have simply taken their game away from them. Still, it's an interesting thing to ponder. Speaking of Green Bay, everyone's talking about how Aaron Rodgers can now finally step out from underneath Brett Favre's shadow, and I just don't get this. Since when was Aaron Rodgers in Brett Favre's shadow? They kicked Brett Favre out because he was so good. That was the whole point. Now, perhaps he had to prove that he was as good as they said he was. But then you're not under the person's shadow. No. He would be under their shadow if here's what would have happened. If Brett Favre had retired from Green Bay, then Aaron Rodgers would be trapped under his shadow forever because the town would have had this warm feeling about Brett Favre forever. That didn't happen. And that wasn't going to happen. We all knew Brett was going to play until Brett could not play anymore. Which is, I think, where we found ourselves now. So all we really had here was someone who had to prove that he was pretty much a good quarterback. But everybody knew that, so going into this, I don't think there was that much pressure on Aaron Rodgers to prove that he was just as good as Brett Favre. Certainly he'd already taken his job. I think, that battle had been won early on. The coaches might have felt silly if he didn't do well, but Aaron Rodgers just had to be Aaron Rodgers. My own opinion. Again, we don't hang out. I don't have a couple beers with Aaron Rodgers every Friday night and say, hey, how are you feeling, buddy? Do you feel like you're trapped underneath, the shadow of Brett Favre? Although that would be nice. It'd be cool to be able to do that. But it doesn't happen, no. And of course, we wish our best of luck to Brett Favre, who will now retire and go off into the sunset and probably land another job somewhere in football, either coaching or announcing, or maybe he'll just kick back on the ranch and settle in for a little while, watch the game on TV, spend some of the multiple millions of dollars that he has, and just be Brett. Now, if you're looking for a quarterback who's trapped in the shadow of Brett Favre, that would be Mark Sanchez. Because apparently he looked at things and said, hey, if Brett Favre had a strange and bizarre sexual controversy, I have to have one too. Of course, everyone's familiar with Brett Favre and his inappropriate use of his cell phone. But you may or may not have heard about Mark Sanchez and his inappropriate use of a 17-year-old girl. Don't worry, it's not statutory rape. in New Jersey, where apparently, and I did not know this, I was not aware of this, the age of consent in New Jersey is only 16. And New York, it's only 17. Now, all you guys from Pennsylvania, don't start thinking, hey, you know, time to start having dates up in Binghamton. Because there is still the Mann Act to deal with here. Still, I find this kind of funny, because here you have something that is potentially embarrassing for the league. Because one of the odd things that happen when you have, you know, intercourse with very young girls on the order of 17 is they tend to twit pic the whole thing, the rumpled bed covers along with the story about the whole thing and how they're bragging that they're sleeping with Mark Sanchez on their Twitter account. Those kids today, they love their Twitter. Actually, you think the Mark Sanchez thing would be a good thing for Ben Roethlisberger, because that should get him off the front pages. But I've already heard one comment from someone saying, yeah, she was underage, most places, just not in Jersey. But on the flip side, it was consensual. In fact, she seduced him. The interesting thing is this won't really help out Brett Favre all that much, because it's another Jets quarterback in another strange sort of sexual controversy. What are they doing over there at the Jets headquarters? What's the atmosphere like there in the locker room? A little wild, I'm thinking. Maybe not as wild as the Georgia bathroom, but still. And although there are no charges being brought, because there's nothing illegal being done in New Jersey, I'm surprised good old Commissioner Goodell hasn't reacted to this. And again, there were no charges brought against Big Ben, but it was embarrassing, and he nailed him for it. Took him aside, said, you gotta stop living this wild life. I have no problem with the actions that were taken against Big Ben, if you're gonna take him against anyone else who's living that kind of wild life. This is America. You want to pick up a girl in a nightclub, even though I don't know how she was in the nightclub if she was only 17. And apparently he found out she was only 17, told her, hey, can't be with you till you're 18. And she said, ha ha, not in New York or New Jersey. So this was all very upfront. Everybody knew what they were getting into here. If you're going to live that life, fine. But if two people are going to live that life, and you're going to nail one, and make sure he misses 4 games, and make sure that he's absolutely run down into nothing, I'd like to see some consistency here. Consistency is a big thing with me. Same thing with all the illegal hits. If you're going to look on Monday and say, ooh, this was an illegal hit, then I expect you to go over every single play of every single game and fine everybody. And if you're not pulling in $5 million in fines a week, then you're not doing your job. Then you're cherry picking who you want to make an example of. And I have a problem with that. If you want the league to behave more, so you pick on specific people for specific things because they're prominent, and then you don't pick on other people because, well, they're not as prominent and we're not going to get the bang for our buck here, and we don't want to nail everybody because people would stop playing, then you're a hypocrite. It's dishonest. Well, that I have a problem with. To be honest, I think if you want to make the game safer, you really want to make the game safer, safety is your concern. All right, here's a challenge to you, Commissioner Goodell. Change the rules of the game so that the Pro Bowl rules are used in every game. You know the Pro Bowl rules. No blitzing, no intentional grounding. You've got to use the 4-3 defense. Got to have at least four defensive linemen, and a whole bunch of other stuff that keeps people from getting hurt. Somebody had to put some effort into these rules and say, how can we protect the players? Because this is just the Pro Bowl, and we don't want to see anybody get hurt in the Pro Bowl. And they came up with a set of rules to keep the players safe. Well, if the same set of rules keeps those players safe in the Pro Bowl, why aren't you using them in the rest of the game if you're concerned about safety? Don't pretend to care and then expect bonus points for looking like you care. Do something useful. On a more positive note, I think next year will be the year of the spread offense and the 3-4 defense. You're going to see teams copying the Packers and the Steelers, trying to get to the big game. That is, of course, if we have football. Stay tuned. I'm Vince Shuta for Shuta Multimedia. Talk to you again soon. If you're willing to use, if you've, in the end, I think oh, there's a cell phone.